Yes, good morning again, mga kaibigan. Welcome to Lecture 101, the lecture room of Attorney Raymond Batu. We are still in Due Diligence. Due Diligence guides before buying real properties in the Philippines. Bago bumili ng lupa, mag-due diligence muna. Simulan natin. Ngayon, what is due diligence? Balikan po natin ulit ito. Ulitin po natin itong definition na ito. We will read this one. The investigation or exercise of care that the buyer is normally expected to do before entering into a real estate sales agreement with the seller. So, kailangan po mag-imbestiga. Kung kayo po ang buyer, kailangan yung tingnan ang mga papeles, tingnan nyo ang property. And ano po yung mga due diligence guides natin na we already enumerated doon sa ating other videos. Alright, let's start with know the proof of ownership. Alamin ang patunay ng pagmamay-ari ng seller. Number 2, know how to verify a land title. Alamin natin paano mag-verify ng land title at saka mga documents. Number 3, know the seller. Sino ba itong seller na ito? Dapat kilalanin natin itong seller na ito. And number 4, conduct ocular inspection. Dapat ma-check din natin ang area kung anong nandoon, anong meron doon, sino nakatira doon. Yun po ang mga bagay na dapat nating malaman during the conduct of ocular inspection. And of course, know the taxes and legal expenses. Kasi kalimitan, ang talagang nagbabayad ng taxes and legal expenses and registration fees, yung buyer, kasi siya yung nagpa-process ng transfer ng title under his name. He is now the active subject in the transaction and therefore he wants to transfer the title under his name. So kailangan malaman niya itong taxes and legal expenses. And of course, find a real notary public, yung totoong notaryo publiko, para hindi po tayo mapalpak sa transaction kasi baka hindi siya totoong notary public. Ang document natin hindi maging public document. Yan. So, simulan natin. Na-discuss na natin itong proof of ownership. Done. Na-discuss na natin itong how to verify a land title. Done. Now, nandito tayo sa know the seller. Let's start. This is the third guide, itong know the seller. Ngayon, dito sa third guide na know the seller, ang daming mga tanong na dapat nating malaman. Number 1, is the seller married? May asawa ba siya? Hindi po tayo nag-ususo sa buhay ng tao, pero kailangan talaga natin malaman yan. Is the seller married to a foreigner? Yan. Number 3, is the property co-owned by 2 or more persons? Marami bang may-ari? Number 4, is the seller represented by an attorney? In fact, yung mga seller, wala So, meron siyang representative. And is the seller a corporation, an artificial being created and existing by operation of law? Yan. So, ano yung mga requirements kung korporasyon? Hindi naman totoong tao yan, artificial being yan. Now, let's start with, is the seller married? Doon tayo. Gaya ng sabi ko, hindi tayo nag-ususo. Pero mayroon tayong mga tanong pagdating dito. Marami tayong sub-questions. Number 1 question natin is there a prenuptial agreement? Number 2, when is the date of marriage? Number 3, single sa titulo, pero at the time of sale, married siya. Paano yun? Yan. Married siya, pero divorce sa labas ng bansa. Divorce abroad. Married but separated in fact. Hiwalay lang na walang court order. Ito naman, may court decree of annulment or nullity. Iba yan annulment or nullity, iba yan sila. Ito, may court decree of legal separation. Imagine that, yung question na is the seller married, daming sub-questions. So, we start with sub-question number 1. Now, ang tanong muna, bago yan, is that, bakit natin tinatanong kung ang seller is married? Dahil po, dito po sa marital consent rule. Kasi kung usually pag married sila at sila ang may-ari ng property, co-owner sila sa property. It's a conjugal property. And therefore, both spouses must consent to the sale. Otherwise, if one will not consent, then the transaction is questionable. Walang problema kung single. Tuloy-tuloy ang transaction kasi siya lang naman apipirma. Basta capacitated siya, tsaka walang other infirmities sa kanyang pagkatao at saka sa transaction, no? Basta single, tuloy-tuloy lang. Ngayon, if your question, the seller is married, is yes, ang first question na tatanungin mo is there a prenuptial agreement? Ano ba itong prenuptial agreement? Prenuptial agreement is a legal arrangement between future spouse, hindi pa nag-asawa, as to what kind of regime will their properties be governed during their marriage. Meron pong tatlong regime: separation of property, conjugal partnership of gains, and absolute community of property. Ano ba ito sila? Ngayon, yung separation of property, alam natin yun. Madali lang yun. Separation, kanya-kanya tayo ng property. Complete separation. Whereas, itong absolute community of property and conjugal partnership of gains, kailangan natin i-define at magbigay tayo ng konting mga examples. Like, absolute community of property. The property belonging to the spouse before the marriage become part of the conjugal property. Conjugal property meaning the property that belongs to the both spouses. Huwag niyo pong i-confuse ang conjugal property sa conjugal partnership of gains. Iba yan ha. So, conjugal property, property that belongs to both spouses. So, example, here is Juan, single, meron siyang mga properties. Maria, single, may mga properties. Pag-asawa nila, yung properties nila, conjugal properties na yon. Sila ng dalawa ang may-ari. Yun ang absolute community of property. Now, in conjugal partnership of gains, iba naman. Juan, marami siyang property, single siya. Si Maria, marami siyang property, single siya. Nag-asawa sila. Yung properties nila, nung pagka-dalaga niya at saka pagka-binata, single siya, excluded yun. Hindi yun siya conjugal property. Kung ano ang mapundar nila during the marriage, yun ang conjugal property lang. Yan ang conjugal partnership of gains. Now, take note that even if meron silang nakuha na property during the marriage, if the transfer is gratuitous, ibig sabihin gratis, walang bayad, it is considered as an exclusive property of the spouse who received it. Let's say, by way of donation or by way of inheritance. Kanya lang yon. Walang sali si kabilang spouse. So, kung nalipat ang title under his name at nakalagay, let's say, Juan married to Maria, yung word na Maria, yung married to Maria is only a description that Juan is married to Maria. It doesn't signify na si Maria may-ari din sa property na yon. Yun ang ibig sabihin nun. Kaya sinasabi, kung ano yung na-acquire during the marriage, kailangan onerous transfer. Anong onerous? Burdensome. Ibig sabihin may kapalit. So kung kunin mo isang property, kapalit ng pera, that's burdensome. Yun lang po ang pwede nilang conjugal property, that they will own both. So kailangan both of them must sign or must conform to the sale. Kailangan ng marital conformity or marital consent. Now, take note that it is also applicable sa absolute community of property. Kapag may property during the marriage na natanggap through mana or donation, it's exclusive property of the spouse who received it. Alright? So, that is the gist of absolute community of property and conjugal partnership of gains. Now, let us see paano ginagawa ito prenuptial agreement. Of course, prenuptial agreement must be in writing. Kailangan may kasulatan. Signed by the parties and ginawa nila before the marriage. Kung yun lang ginawa nila, between them, binding na yan. Pero if they want to bind third persons and to everyone, the whole world, ito po requirements. The prenuptial agreement must be notarized. Kailangan notarized para maging public document. Kaya sabi nga natin, yung mga public document lang tinatanggap ng mga government offices kung for purposes of transactions. Alright. And you record that prenuptial agreement in the LCR where the marriage contract was also recorded. Doon mo rin siya iparehistro para to bind everyone. And recorded in the proper registry of deeds. Bakit proper registry of deeds? Because where the property is located, yung title, dalhin mo doon. Doon mo ipa-annotate ang prenuptial agreement where the property is located. That is the proper registry of deeds. Yan ang ibig sabihin ng mga requirements nitong prenuptial agreement. Okay. Ngayon, sa seller na married, ganun pa rin, marital consent ang issue. Ang sub-question number 2, when is the date of marriage? Bakit kailangan natin malaman kung kailan ang date of marriage? Well, kasi married on August 3, 1988 and forward, ang regime na mag-govern is absolute community of property kapag walang prenuptial agreement. Pero, pag kinasal, married on August 2, 1988 and downwards, ang automatic property regime will be conjugal partnership of gains pag walang prenuptial agreement. Bakit po? Kasi, ang family code natin, it took effect on August 3, 1988. Now, sabi ng family code, marriages from the date of the effectivity of this family code, the property regime that will govern will be absolute community of property in cases where there is no prenuptial agreement. Ngayon, noong August 2, 1988 pababa, the law that governs on property relations in case there is no prenuptial agreement is the New Civil Code. And sabi sa New Civil Code that kung walang prenuptial agreement, conjugal partnership of gains. Alright? So yun po, no? Importante so that we will determine kung needed ba talaga ang marital consent o hindi. And so that malaman din natin kung exclusive ba yung property or para-personal ba yung property para alam natin on how to deal kung kailangan ba ang signature or consent ng other party. Kasi there are cases na ayaw pumirma. Tapos at least ma-determine mo, kaya hindi naman kailangan siya pumirma. Kasi hindi naman kailangan marital consent niya. Because he falls under these kinds of explanation. Okay, so, again, sana may natutunan kayo and I'm happy that you've been watching the lecture series, no? We will have many lecture series more and we will finish this. I will commit to finish this one, all the due diligence guides, and later on, I will discuss other real estate matters. Again, as usual, I would say thank you. Muchas gracias. Danke. Thank you very much. And maraming salamat po.